Hi, this is vlog entry 154, and it's about 11 a.m. CST. I've been quite busy this morning. Well, my head's been busy. I didn't say I'm busy, but people don't see how busy I am in my own head. So, yeah, I don't know, people always say, it's like, no, you're not busy. Like, yes, I am. It's just, yeah, you can't see it all the time because my head's, yeah. Anyways, when I say I'm busy, it's usually because I'm busy in my head as opposed to me actually moving my body, which I still do because I tend to, um, what's like, I tend to have like motor sensory reactions when my brain is lighting up. So I tend to like pace a lot, and I feel like I have to grab things or do something. So that's why I go on walks typically. But yeah, so yeah. So I mean, like I was just thinking about a lot of things today pertaining to like how I think about freedom and what freedom means to me. And my best definition of freedom is basically simply just not having to rely on others and having others rely on you, because again, we're in an interconnected system. So the less you have to rely on others, the more free you are, right? So I guess that's just my best definition of what freedom is in this world. And yeah, I know people like to say that you can gain freedom just by letting go of what you see around you and just being and whatnot. And that's another way of freedom. It can go both ways, except I don't know. My mind tends towards having more control over particular variables and nodes within the world that we live in. So I mean, I think the reason why if I have a better I want to have more freedom because I've had a taste of it in my own mind, if that kind of makes sense, because I did go through this process of letting things go and just being with my mind and not necessarily um, wanting or desiring things outside of myself. I've already been through that process of just being happy without necessarily having anything. So I've had a little taste of what freedom is like in that side of the spectrum, and I want to try the other side of the spectrum, which is basically the opposite, is where you I mean, like, it's still, you're essentially still free, but it's free in a different perspective, basically, where you actually have control over the inputs and outputs of the world that we live in to some degree, not completely, because that's impossible. Um, and I was modeling it because I like math and everything, and I created tuples for inputs and outputs as well. I mean, you can create it's just a two-dimensional tuple for both input and output, and then you have an agent, which is just the quote-unquote quality of the agent, which is quality can be anything, but quality from the perspective of the world, because I mean that's where this is the system that we're in, obviously. So it has to be from that perspective if you want to gain some kind of internal equity, right? So that's basically quality is the internal equity of the agent, right? The equity from the perspective of the world that we're in. And I was modeling that and seeing the different the proportionality relations between input and output, and the magnitude of the inputs and the outputs, and then the quality of the inputs and the outputs, and how they. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can do calculus as well to change um, the change of the quality of a given agent with respect to time. Of course, there's an initial condition because we're all born with genes and a given environment. Of course, you'd have to take that into consideration. But then past that, obviously, you tend to just have to kind of scrub the magnitude of the variables, the magnitude for that given tuple of the input and output. Of course, you would. I mean, there's a tipping point, right? Because you can't have too much input, because then the brain wouldn't be able to process it properly. So it does have a processing capacity, and well, the human brain is interesting, and I haven't properly. I'm getting a better feeling of what my processing capacity is, just because I'm doing things that I haven't done before, and I'm like kind of feeling my way through the world and just understanding how quickly my brain process information to integrate into its internal framework, and it processes it pretty quickly. Except it's again, like, I'm considered being INTP, so I think I consider myself to process information deeply. So it takes a little bit longer in comparison to somebody that's more has a judging personality type, because it's an aperture thing, I think. So like INTPs tend to be kind of stuck in the forest. They don't see the bigger picture, but so they're kind of in the trees at times. I mean, they could go up there too, but they're more likely to be in the woods, just creating logical structures for it to kind of have a better understanding of the world and everything and whatnot. So I consider myself to be like that, and I was like just kind of looking back at how I just the past year, and like actually putting myself in an environment where I actually have to push myself to some degree, and understanding the phases I go through. Like it seems like most of my phases are kind of like, well, I think most of its time is spent obviously processing and integrating the information to a particular structure, and then taking action. I do take action, especially now because I have to. It's just more time processing before it takes action. Those cycles can be. It depends on what I'm doing and everything and whatnot. I've just been kind of looking at that, and I don't know. It's kind of. I think there can be some kind of. It's better just for, like, again, my brain is just trying to mathematize everything and whatnot, and how it can acquire its internal equity somewhat optimally, as opposed to being a complete recluse. And since my brain likes systems a lot, I was thinking about just writing different systems my brain wants to understand. One of them being like tech infrastructure, of course, and then I kind of want to understand the economy a lot more because I like that kind of stuff. Mainly because of its practicality, and but then you kind of had to, like, systems are kind of complicated, and then you can have like systems below systems, which creates those systems. You know what I mean? Kind of, you could think of like the stack of science, right? You have physics below it, and then you have metaphysics even under that, and then mathematics, which is the understanding of metaphysics, and then it goes up towards chemistry and biology, and then psychology, and then sociology and economics, and those can actually then those structures then go up to the economical world that we live in, and then you can go to like even higher than that, which is culture, and then nations, and then geopolitics and political structures, and that tends to be very complicated. Because you don't have to understand all the layers, but I think for any system you have to go a few layers down to understand it, right? If you're studying economics, you would want to at least understand the psychology of human beings, right? And study particular case studies and all that. So it doesn't help to just understand calculus or the mathematics behind it, but when you understand psychology, you can create a decent axiomatic structure of how a system will behave long term and whatnot. And it gets really complicated. And there are a lot of people who are smart and they deal with that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know. So yes, I don't know. I just I usually like being at the lower layers of the totem pole, like physics and whatnot. So and then like you can think of like the reason why computer science is kind of its own insulated system, right? Because we created it, right? Our minds were the ones who actually created. I mean, you could think of it as God, right? Because we are basically God. It's just we're God, but I think I don't know. I was just thinking about spirituality a lot too, and I was thinking about like how spirituality and religion is just all a way of getting closer to God understanding itself, because we are God. It's just we're unconscious of the fact that we're just unconscious, right? And when it comes to science and the progression of science and even religion and spirituality and all that, they're all basically when you go the other way around, like the source, as opposed to going to more complex systems. But if you're going the other way around, like physics and science in general, especially if you're talking about physics, we're trying to get especially theoretical physics, we're trying to get closer to God, right? And religion, spirituality, of course, which is religion to a degree, it understands that a lot more in comparison to the mainstream religions that we see nowadays. Like Buddhism is closer to, obviously that's a form of spirituality, and Hinduism and all that, but like if you look at more mainstream Western religions, then there seems to be a misunderstanding of the fact that God is separate from the self and whatnot, and but that's what people like to believe, and I don't judge people if that's how they want to understand the world. That's fine. I don't know. I've just been thinking. I don't know what put me into this loop of thinking about random shit like this, but I started thinking about it when I got up this morning, and I created a decent mathematical structure of optimizing the internal equity from the perspective of the world that we live in and whatnot, and what I can do to maximize my internal equity. I would say efficiently. I wouldn't say as fast as possible. I'd rather just be efficiently, because I tend to be a meanderer, and I don't like doing things as fast as possible. So I would say efficiently as opposed to optimally as opposed to being fast, right? That just means less energy expenditure. Yeah. So I was looking at that, and I created a decent structure, and I created the data structures for them, and some of their basic relationships. Like I said, I was looking at the proportionalities between the magnitudes of the input and output, and the node, and how the node, which is the agent that is trying to gain as much freedom as possible, has to it starts off with, I think the initiation process before it can gain true freedom is by understanding itself as much as it can before it starts taking action, but before it starts creating the freedom that it sees freedom, right? It's basically by creating your own microcosm without it necessarily being too dependent on the macrocosm, I guess. And I don't know what my microcosm is. This isn't a microcosm I created, but it's not necessarily what I want anymore. It was nice for a while, but I want to try something different. So I guess in my lifetime, I'm probably going to go through a series of different microcosms that I'm going to experiment with, that I would potentially find fulfilling. So yeah, and the quickest way to develop a microcosm that properly reflects your preferences requires a little bit of intelligence and persistence, mainly, and consistency, and you can and a lot of data input, especially for me, because that's how the brain works, right? You can think of artificial intelligence. Artificial is intelligent only because of the amount of data input that we put into it. It's the same thing as brains, obviously, right? It's a structure that we have. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I don't have my glasses yet, so I can't even read my board from here. So I don't remember everything that I wrote down. It was quite a bit. I just went through just a lot of. I get creative in the morning sometimes, and it's nice to see that every once in a while. I'm hoping I can actually use this framework as opposed to just making a framework and then saying that's cool and then just like throwing it into the trash bin. I wouldn't say the trash bin, but having it in my reservoir of information that I haven't necessarily implemented into my reality. I kind of want to understand. I haven't created the full structure yet, and I haven't made like a full dynamical system of like the cycles that the agent that's characterized the same way that I am goes through. So yeah, I don't know. I just it's just more of an interesting. And then of course, once you have a pretty good structure, you start using numbers and imposing a metric system. but I'm playing around with the higher abstractions more before I start instantiating it into a more precise and measurable system. Just to see, I like playing around with abstractions, like I've said before. So, um, yeah. Aside from that, I'm not doing anything for Christmas or New Year's, but we talked to my family on Christmas Day, and we're going to be just chatting a bit. And my parents gave me a lot of winter stuff. I got a new jacket. I have a Columbia jacket and then a thinner jacket, and a bunch of other stuff. And I got some gloves and quite a few things. And I don't know. I'm probably going to play around with my framework that I'm creating because why not, I guess, since I'm thinking about it right now. And I don't like fleshing out all of the details because I think it's probably not smart to do that on the internet all the time because it could be seen as potentially intellectual property. You know, if I want to make it my own intellectual property, I could do that. And so it wouldn't be completely smart to share your intellectual ideas with the world unless you're working under an institution that has signed an agreement with you, obviously, because you're getting paid to do that. But I'm not getting paid to make these things, so I'd prefer to keep it hush-hush, you know. Yeah. So I don't know what else I'm going to be doing today. Probably a little bit of programming. I've been in a more passive mood, as you can see. I don't know. Yeah, this world's interesting. I enjoy it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.